I truly appreciate everybody that joined in. 59 of us here, women at different levels of our lives, and listening to me today. I appreciate you joining. I will be sharing my screen in a minute so that I can just get right into speaking about working in a multicultural organization as a product manager. That would be the topic today. I thought Bisola will talk a lot about me, so I did not prepare a bio to talk about me. So just take me as Ola Ajayi, the simple person here who's just chatting with you today, who's going to be talking about everything that is more pertinent to soft skills and how you can navigate the work life. So I am sharing my screen. Also to note, housekeeping on my end, I do not use Zoom a lot, so I will be taking a little bit of time to get my screen shared and to start speaking. So one moment. Okay, great. In a second, the screen will be up and we'll be ready to go. Do let me know when you can see my screen. And at the moment, Hills and Tech has not given me the rights to share my screen. So basically, if you can help me with that, thank you. Well.
Okay, I'll be working on that. 1 minute, please.
Sure. Okay, while she does that, I decided that I would start at some point in my presentation, creating this icebreaker where everybody can tell me about themselves in the chat. I absolutely love to read about the people I speak to when I get the chance to. So I did create mine first, and I'll be posting it in the chat. 60 of us in here, if you would like to introduce yourself. Because this meeting is recorded, I will get to see it. And if you ever connect with me, because it's recorded and I can see and read through where you are in your career journey, I'll be happy to connect with you as well. So here's mine in 2 seconds as well. I'll take the lead. Okay, so everyone is in the chat now. If you want to just tell me about yourself, what you're doing, where you are at in your life, career life, how we can connect on any social media, please share. Maybe something fun about yourself. So I'm Ola, I'm a super mom. I like to say that. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but I try on a daily basis to get there. Navigating work life, navigating mom life, and every other thing that I love to do. I'm an extreme homebody. So you can see I'm in my home, I work from home. I decided to start working from home to be able to mitigate work life and being mom as well. I love everything Zen. What this means is because work life is busy, because mom life is busy, I spend my extra time just rest. So that's me. On IG, I talk about tech and my mom life. On LinkedIn, I act very professional. And I also write a blog. That's a little bit about me. So if you want to, while we wait for this permission, please just share a little bit about you and I'll be happy to read it. Hi, Joy. Nice to meet you. Hello, Adeyinka. Yes. Hi, homebody. It's the best. I love us. At the moment, tomorrow. Hi, Ify. Thank you for joining. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen. At this point, I cannot see the chat anymore, but I'll be happy to read the 7 of you who are in the chat telling me about yourself. I'll definitely read. If you drop a link of your any bio, I'll actually click on it and actually see who you are and learn more about you. Thank you. I love it. 10 people. Amazing, amazing. Anyways, thank you, Bisola and Hills and Tech, for having me. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. I'll be speaking on working in a multicultural organization as a product
Recording
manager.
in progress.
Now, just so you know. All right. A little bit of housekeeping on my end, so there's no echo. If you want, please just mute yourself. And if you have any questions at all, feel free to use the chat box. I'll definitely get to them. All right, so I'll be talking to us about working in a multicultural organization as a product manager. I'll be taking us on an overview of what multiculturalism is, what product management is. We'll step into just a little bit of product management lifecycle. And the reason is because I'm a product manager. I have to tell you what I do. And we'll spend more time on multiculturalism, basically talking about what it is on my end as I work and skills that help me today to get to where I am and actually work in this space. Lastly, just ask me. This is where I want you to ask me all the questions. I did receive a couple of questions before this meeting, so I will be talking less and I want this meeting to be more interactive. So I'll spend a little bit of minutes speaking from the overview down to the skills. And then at the end, I will leave it for us to ask all the questions we have and I will answer to my best ability. So this meeting is being recorded and I just want to know, Hills and Tech, would you be sharing this recording? Because there's a pop-up on my screen to allow recording. How would you want me to handle this?
Oh, yes, please. We'll be
Should I
sharing.
allow the recording?
Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay. The problem is I might have to take out my screen to get that done. So I'll stop sharing.
Now, where is the time? Before Jonas, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Right. So give me 1 minute to stop sharing and so I can solve this problem on my screen.
I think you're using two devices, right?
Yes, I am, but
okay, so you have to mute
on my
one. You have to mute one.
Is that me?
Yes.
I'm using just one device.
Oh, I'm wondering where the microphone is coming from and the echo.
There are a couple of people that are not on mute. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Can we be on mute so that it's easy for everybody to hear?
Hi, Ola, could you meet everyone at your end? Possible? Since you are the host.
Listen, the Bible says to be violent.
Great. Perfect.
All right. In the case where people join in when I'm speaking, I wouldn't have the ability to mute people. So I'm going to try to make you a co-host so that helps me a little bit. All right. I'll go back to sharing my screen and apologies everyone for waiting that second.
Get my charger so we can take a bath.
All right, back to sharing my screen and I'm hoping everybody can see it. I was just talking about how I'll be going through pretty much an overview of what it is to be a product manager and what multiculturalism is. I'll also be going through like a high level of the product management lifecycle, just because I'm a product manager and I definitely want you to hear what it means to be a product manager. Then I'll spend a whole lot of time talking about multiculturalism and as well as the skills that has helped me grow in my space today in a multicultural organization. The Ask Me will take the most time of today because I want us to ask enough questions and I'll answer them accordingly. Lastly, I do have a ton of questions that were shared with me. So if there's not a ton of questions, I do have a ton of answers to the questions that you might want to ask and you haven't just asked. Okay, so moving on to my next slide. What is multiculturalism? It's the presence of individuals from different cultural backgrounds working together in the same organization. The differences include languages, beliefs, value, custom, and behaviors. So instead of ignoring and making fun differences, it all just encourages us to learn and understand ourselves. It's like trying new food, basically, in a different space, understanding the culture of different people, listening to music when you travel around the world, wherever you are, even taking it back to Nigeria as a place, or Africa. I do understand that in different countries, they're multilingual, multicultural, and you want to learn about your different ethnic groups to be able to live as one united people. It's really just the same in organizations where you want to learn about your colleague, what they like, what they do, how they live, their best music, and just being more inclusive. It's about being open-minded and curious about the world around us. It really just helps us make friends with people that are from different groups, and then just really learning about their culture, seeing how they live, what they love, how they react, and what's the best way working with this kind of people. If you ask me, I'll say it's exciting because every day I learn something new. To give an example, I learn about Mexican dishes because I have a ton of Mexican people working on my team. I do have someone who just really loves to travel, and she lives in Peru. As of today, she's in Italy, and the next week she's somewhere else. So there are people that are just global nomads, and you tend to learn about how they live their life and how they're able to merge their work life with this. There are people that eat differently. There are people that are of different basic cultures, and this has helped me actually integrate and learn more about people. Now let's talk about product management. It's the process of creating, launching successful products that people really love. It involves working with cross-functional people with different skills, from the designers to the engineers, to the marketers, to make sure that the product actually meets the needs of their customers. If you ask me, I think it's a really cool job because you get to be creative. You can also be analytical, and then you work with lots of different people. It's like building something from scratch and watching it really grow, bringing it to us, majority of the women here who are mothers. It's like bringing a baby to birth and watching it actually grow, watching the babies grow to like toddlers, teenagers, adults, and the likes of those. All right, it was going to be an icebreaker, but I see that people have actually put in so much information in the chat, and I'm really happy to read about you. But then again, it's on my screen, and if you just joined and you didn't meet people when we're doing the icebreaker, I'm really just Ola, a super mom, not because I'm perfect, but because I make things work, regardless of how busy I am, how tired I am, or how my schedule is really packed up. Not so perfect, but as long as everybody's happy and we're actually living life. I'm an actual homebody who loves everything Zen. On Instagram, I speak about tech and mom life. On LinkedIn, I really just act professional. And I also write a blog. So I threw that into the chat. And if you did not see it, Bisola, can you help me put it back on the chat for people who just joined so they can actually join the trend of adding information about themselves? Thank you. Well, moving on to the next slide, let's talk about project management life cycle. This is a very dynamic and iterative process that requires careful planning. It requires execution, adaptation to bring successful products to the market. So it goes from ideation, which is just brainstorming the ideas, brainstorming the customer pain points, market research, concept-based, and just bringing the big business goals and merging all this together to have a best idea to work with. Then you move on to the planning, which is all just establishing your roadmap, the development timeline, allocating your resources that you need to actually build this product. Then we just move to the design. This is where you bring your designers who have this creative mind where they bring things to life. This is basically the UX you see today on Instagram. There was someone who stayed there and designed that feed that you scroll through, or how you go to the search and find random people, or even your Instagram stories or the DMs. These people come together with their creativity and speak to the technical team as well to make sure that there's actually that connection between the front end, which is what we see today, and the back end that powers this amazing experience that we have on apps like Zoom today, or Instagram, or LinkedIn, and the likes of those. Once this is aligned, we get to development. This is where we have the tech guys come in, they work on this amazing, the powerhouse, bringing two different tools together, connecting these things together, writing those codes, testing them, and actually making sure it works well with the front end and the designs that were built by the designers, of course. Then there's this testing phase. Mind you, in the development phase, there's testing, and there's also more testing again to make sure that everything works well. Let's take an example. In the past week, there was that buzz of Netflix trying to have a whole live show, and it flopped. Who knows? Maybe there was just not enough testing to make sure that post-launch everything was working fine. So there's testing in development, and there's more testing again in the testing phase before it is launched, of course, to the market. And of course, after post-launch, this is where you actually take more feedback from the customers who have used the product, see how you can make it better, and actually just keep iterating. That's pretty much a high level of product management lifecycle. Now let's go to multicultural. Alison. There's really several benefits of working in a multicultural space because there's just diverse perspective. Imagine you working with people that think differently from you, that were brought up differently from you, and you're bringing all these diverse perspectives together to ideate as a team to actually bring things to life. You can have a wider range of ideas, wider range of solutions, and of course, that better decision making. When you talk about the enhanced creativity and innovation, I just spoke about the designers. They have different eyes for things. And mind you, the teammate I have today that is a global nomad and keeps traveling around is a designer. And every time she goes to a new space, she sees things from a design perspective, and she brings it into the work that I do on a daily basis, and then brings that design to life because she's actually a creative thinker. Or is it the testing people, seeing things in more details? Or is it the product managers like myself, bringing in the strategy and the innovation, making sure we're prioritizing based on the business that we're working on and making sure we're delivering the right goals at the right time? It also has to improve problem solving, of course, because we have diverse perspective, people from different cultures and the way of approaching problems, different people and their different types, from the type A's, B's, and the C's, and the D's. These people have different ways of actually leading and solving problems effectively. You can understand that working with this kind of people with different points of views would mean that you would have to be adaptable, of course, because if someone is working in a different style from you or thinking in a different way from you, you actually have to be more adaptable to embrace change as you go on. So that's one of the benefits there. You have more increased adaptability because of the different kind of people you're working with. And then you also really just have a broader cultural understanding because you see people that are not Yoruba or Igbo or Hausa or Efik or Edo or Ghanaian or Kenyan, or you just go from just our large African continent to the Americans, to the British, the Italians, and the likes of those. Just makes you see people in different perspective, why they love what they love, why they eat what they eat, why they act, why the reasons they act the way they act, and just gives you different more knowledge bank to help you iterate your own life. I like to see this understanding on my end on a daily basis. I love to gather knowledge of people and the way they live because it gives me a broader perspective that is really not just about me. And then when I see things happening in my space, in my job that I can take my emotions and my feelings away, because it's not me, it's not my way of acting, is that we're different people coming together as one. And of course, it's going to improve my communication skills, because the way I speak today, it's not the way the Mexicans speak, or the Indians speak, or the British speak, or the Italians speak. It also helps me with better listening to these people to be able to understand what they're saying. And of course, these amazing challenges that are probably the opposite of the benefits: language barriers, the cultural differences, the differences in work styles, of course, the time zone differences if you're working like me as a remote person, and power dynamics, because of course, culture is different and people think that the more power they have, the more successful they can be. But being able to manage all of these things to make sure that you're actually working as a great team. Moving on to skills. Basically, skills is what I bucketed them into 4, but of course, there's a lot more soft skills that you should learn as a person working in a multicultural space. And then when I say skills here, I say communication, because it's very important to communicate effectively with your team, which may include people from different cultural backgrounds who really just speak different languages. It also means that you need to be more adaptable, because this skill can help you navigate cultural differences. It can help you navigate, make you work more effectively, and then also work with colleagues from different backgrounds. And then collaborating, of course, because as a product manager, you have to speak to a ton of people with different expertise to make sure you have a common goal and you're achieving it. And then you'll be more diverse, of course, because you're working with different people. So I did bucket all the skills into this 4. As we go along and we get to the Ask Me, just be sure that I will be pulling all of the questions into these 4 buckets, because that's where we would live. And then as you go on and you think about everything I say today, you will learn how to build better communication. You learn how to be more adaptable, collaborate more, and of course, be open to diversity. Now let's talk about communication. As a product manager, it's important to communicate effectively with your team, which may include people from different backgrounds, like I said, and you need to make effort to understand your colleagues' perspective. So you have to be more patient, you have to be more clear with your communication as you do so. So you understand there are various types and skills for communication, from the verbal communication, which is really the most common way of communicating in a multicultural organization. You're talking to people a lot. So in this place, I say that for me, I learned to pick my words. I have learned to pick my words today. I have also learned to practice active listening. How has this helped me? Because I want to be able to listen while people are speaking to me, to actually understand what they want, because understanding what they want will solve the problem of, number 1, scrutiny, will solve the problem of maybe most of the micromanaging you see, and you will solve the problem of you feeling that maybe projects are not given to you, because basically, if you don't understand what somebody is saying, you can't actually deliver. So first of all, I practice active listening. Then I move on to asking the question back in different ways. And there's a rule of thumb that if you ask the question back in probably 5 ways, you will actually understand what someone is trying to say. So this for me is a big one, and I think that everybody should learn it. For me, I practice active listening, cooking, practice active listening, working. I always have a speaker somewhere, because active listening means that I'm doing something else, but I can still hear. And I'm hearing and I'm understanding what I am hearing, not hearing and passing by. Because if I'm speaking to someone, I'm having a verbal conversation, I'm speaking, but I'm still taking in what the person is saying. So it's a two-way thing for me. So I try to practice this by doing something else, so I can actually bring my focus into listening while I'm doing anything else that I'm doing. Now let's talk about written communication. Wow, this is a big one, because it's a space where you want to communicate complex ideas or instruction in the cleanest and the simplest manner. I know I did struggle with this on different spaces, but the biggest one for me is I learned today that in the first minute of anybody reading whatever I'm writing, they do understand my goal and what I want to achieve. So what does that mean for me? I need to be able to summarize everything that I'm writing in whatever amount of pages or whatever amount of line to the first 2 lines. Because of course, all of us here, we understand that even when we use social media, our attention span is so short. Whatever is going to keep us engaged on whatever we're looking at has to catch us in the first 30 seconds, I suppose. So what do? You have to try to make sure that you are actually clear and concise, but you actually be able to keep your reader engaged in the first 30 seconds to 1 minute. And then I start next by giving more details of how I want to accomplish whatever I summarized in the first instance. And lastly, I summarize everything that I said to be able to tie into my goal. What this means is that whoever is reading it understands what I want, understands the goal we're working to, and is able to take an action point for themselves or whoever they need to delegate the task to. And let's talk about visual communication. I mean, I'm doing one right now. I have a slide in front of you. You're looking through it, you've seen outlines, but it's not too cumbersome in your eyes, but you're thinking about everything as I speak, and I'm actually communicating to you via visual and verbal at the same time. So you want to make sure that whatever tools that you're using or modes you're using as a visual communication, from diagrams to charts, other visual aids, are able to illustrate whatever you're saying easily. You want people to actually look at it and connect and understand what you're saying. So if you, for example, I know that we have data analysis and business analysis people on Heels and Tech today, and I understand that you build dashboards and you use diagrams and different charts. Now imagine you have a whole dashboard with diagrams and different charts to interpret something to your stakeholder, and you're really not delivering it because it's too cumbersome. It's not as easy to get the information, and they really don't want to look at that. The goal of your dashboard is to make sure that you're giving the right key points, right metrics, summary in the best concise way. So if you think about your visual communication like that, what do I want my audience to take from what I'm speaking on, what they're seeing as they're hearing me? Or if they're not hearing me, they just look at what I have given them, they're able to get the information back. And now lastly, the non-verbal communication, which is your posture, your body language, the way you act, is one of the biggest things that I know we say today. I can control my mouth, but I cannot control my face. I cannot control my attitude. But really, it's something that we actually do need to learn how to control. In the workspace, every non-verbal communication is interpreted differently because we're people with different and diverse understanding of body language. So in this case, you want to make sure that your body language, the way you act, the way you react, is actually pleasant and actually coinciding, is actually going right with the job you're doing. There is no violence. You're actually being professional and you're doing the right things at the right time. Let's talk about tools. We're using one today, which is the video conferencing. Be able to know how to use these things properly so that you're able to communicate with diverse people. Of course, making sure that you're accommodating people's time zone, even when you're chatting with them, because in these days, the multicultural spaces mean people in different parts of the world. Also, I spoke about written communication. Of course, that's emails, presentation slides, which is the visual communication. And lastly, the one-pagers. Basically, a one-pager is where you have a quick summary of all the work that you want to do. And maybe you're working with a team of 10 people and you want them to be able to go somewhere and get all this information quickly to actually understand what they're doing. What that means, it has to be concise, clear, and able to send the information of the goal and what you're working on. Moving on to the next one. adaptability. Well, as a product manager, you really do need to be able to be open-minded, willing to consider new ideas, new perspective, avoid making assumptions or jumping into conclusion. Because number one, you're working with different people. Making assumptions mean that you have not asked more questions. Like I said, if you ask 5 questions, you can get to why you're actually working on something or understanding somebody's idea perfectly. So you are able to bring more ideas together, refine them, and actually get to work together and achieve this amazing goal or amazing products you're building. Let's even talk about working with, as a product manager, you actually have to understand that you're solving a problem. Whose problem is it? It is your customer's problem. So if you're not open-minded enough to make sure you're taking yourself out of it, and you're actually listening and being open-minded to all the questions and all the pain points you're seeing on your table, and being able to bring them together to make sure that you're working on the right thing, you probably are not adaptable enough for the space. And like I just talked about listening, if you're a good listener, you're able to adapt again because you're actually listening for the pain point. You're listening for the real problem. You're listening for the real idea. Or you might just be listening to understand, what does my manager want me to do first? I've had an instance like this a couple of months ago where I had a goal for the week and I had everything sorted out. I knew what I was going to do. I knew how I wanted to solve my problems for the week, and I knew what I wanted to achieve for that week. However, midweek, I get series of requests coming my way, but I did not get, I want you to do this first. So what did I do in that instance? I started to listen more to understand which ones sounded like more of the biggest pain points that must be solved. As soon as possible, my ability to listen better, to listen well, helped me figure out what my manager wanted me to focus my attention and my energy on at that time. This helped me solve the problem of that week. And of course, I did get a kudos for that. Not because I was great, but because I actually just listened to what I need to prioritize per time. Again, for adaptability, I also put here, learn about different cultures, because you need to be able to adapt to people that, for example, have to resume late because they have one thing to do or the other. Or for people like us, we have a lot of moms here. I do have on my calendar today that I cannot start work till a particular time because I want to do drop off. This is us as mothers, but if you think about people with other different cultural responsibilities or personal responsibilities that would clash with working, if you listen more, like I said at the beginning, you would hear that somebody needs time, so you can probably change a meeting, change a priority timing, or just be adaptable to accommodate the next person you're working with. What this helps you do, it helps you build relationship, and I'll be talking about that later. It also helps you gain that team, what they say, dream team makes the dream work. If the team is not happy, you're probably not going to have the best solution or the best deliverable ever. So be open to learn, be open-minded enough to learn about the next person, just the same way you want them to learn about you. Also consider the fact that most people have not left their space. Just like you that has worked with a lot of Black people and you start to integrate with the Western world, the same way these Western people are trying to integrate with us. So the ability to be open-minded and see that it's not about me, it's really me just understanding the next person and where they're coming from. The goal here is to be able to meet halfway and of course, be flexible. Meeting halfway means that you're flexible enough to prioritize or help the next person. Just make sure you're able to adapt your working style to accommodate the needs of your colleagues, of course. From different time zones to different working hours, you are able to collaborate better when you're able to be flexible. And lastly, communicate clearly is something I said. And if you go through as I go through this slide, you will see it come up a couple of times because it's very, very important to ask questions ask again and ask again, even though if you feel it's stupid, ask again, please. I beg you to ask, because no question is stupid, no question is dumb, but it's just you trying to understand what exactly you need to do or how you can help your team to get to where they need to be. Also, be willing to learn. You will learn from feedback, you will learn from criticism, you will learn from people who have better skills and knowledge than you. Just be willing to learn and admit that you don't know something. But when you have your strong point, be willing to share it as well. Now let's talk about collaboration. It's probably almost everything I've said, but in a different format of you need to build that relationship so you can have trust. It brings about inspiration, assist, support, share, teamwork, of course, success, and of course, exchanging knowledge, information, and ideas. Building relationship. For me, I see when you join a new company, they tell you in the first 30 days, what are you supposed to do? Some people spend the next 30 days working on meeting people. And I'm sure that in the first 30 days, you know who are your allies, who you need in your team to actually get your work, your product, your solution, make sure that you're actually working on the right things per time. So you need to actually build this relationship with this person, with these people. It could be you asking, how can I help with work? Or it could be you just having coffee chats with these people and learning more about them. This way you're actually building allies to help you when you really do need this help. Maybe with their expertise, maybe with their connections, maybe because they've been there longer than you and they have more information to help you get to the next stage and the next step of your career. Be open to foster open communication. This goes from being transparent with your team, sharing your ideas, getting feedback, being able to share more information based on the work you're doing with your team. Because the more information you share, the more you're able to make them know if this is a priority or if we are at risk of on timeline, we're at risk of something. Fostering open communication will help you build this trust and promote a culture of really collaborating. Make sure you set clear goals and expectations. We spoke about this when I spoke about communication and writing this document. But even on a daily basis, I can give you a personal example of this one. I was starting a project to work on a product and I was in the define phase. Basically, what we call define phase on my team means we have gone through most of the planning, but now I'm working with the designers and the engineers to make sure that we're working on the right thing and we are allocating the right time. And at the beginning, I felt like my team was working on different things at the same time, but I really wanted them to work on one thing. So I just did an experiment, and every day for a particular week, I told them, our goal for this week is to do X, Y, and Z because it will help us achieve this. And you know what? At the end of that week, we did achieve the goal. Why? Because I set a clear goal and an expectation. Of course, the goal and the result. What am I going to actually have as my result at the end of this? And going down the line, I was able to use this experiment to talk to my manager who wanted us to have different goals, more than one goal per sprint, or more than two goals, more than one goal, or more than one vision. And I strongly said no. And I did have an experiment of times when I have used it to actually say that setting clear goals and expectations actually help you meet your goal and meet your timeline faster. It is very, 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 very needed that you be culturally sensitive. What this means is different for different people. It's different for everybody. Be aware of cultural communication styles. Be aware of decision-making processes. Be aware of not working norms, and you are willing to adapt to approach and accommodate needs and preferences of your colleagues. There are people that actually will block their calendar for specific needs, maybe focus time, and that's the best way they work. The goal is for you to actually respect it and find the best time that works for the team. Be culturally sensitive enough to see that people have to go on breaks because of whatever cultural reason they have, and you not imposing them to be on the space or work more, or push them to actually work in past the time they want to work. And also, of course, this can never, it's inevitable in our life not to manage conflict. And of course, you would see this happening more in spaces where you have people with different culture. So by actively listening to your colleagues and their concerns, actually seeking to understand their perspective and working together to find the best solution that meets everybody's need is a constant thing that you will be doing. You have to be proactive at this act of managing conflict. Because I can tell you, if you're working today, there's so many times you'll be at work and you're upset with somebody. Remember to take yourself out of the equation. It's just your work, and be able to manage the conflict immediately. Proactively managing conflict will reduce the amount of time you think about yourself or if somebody is hurting you in that space. Proactively, actively listening and understanding what they're trying to say and seeking different perspectives and finding solutions on a common ground by prioritizing, by making trade-off, by having those heavy conversations that will lead you to actually focusing on your project goal or your product goal or your timelines, making sure that it's not about you, but actually pushing everybody to understand we're working as a team, we're working towards this goal, making sure that we're making the right trade-off and priorities to actually make you manage these conflict situations that we often do find ourselves. And finally, celebrating success, celebrating the people that help you, celebrating achievements that you make as a team or as a single person on the team, celebrating people that take extra time or extra effort to get you to where you're supposed to be. And this can help you also build more team morale, foster sense of community, and of course, shared purpose. I have been talking for about 32 minutes, and I hope you're not bored of my voice. In a couple of minutes, I'll leave you to ask me any questions just after my last slide.
No, we are not bored. Well done.
Thank you. So for diversity, we want to embrace cultural differences. This includes difference in communication styles, difference in decision-making processes, difference in our work norms, difference in feedback for even the products and projects we're working on, to make sure that we're actually flexible enough, we're actually adaptable in our approach, and we're willing to adjust our working styles to accommodate these needs and preferences, to accommodate the pain points that we're hearing, so we're actually working on the right thing per time. It's important to incorporate diverse perspectives. And one key benefit of this is the variety of perspective, is that you bring ideas to the table, different ideas and perspectives to the table. And as a product manager, it's important to incorporate this diverse perspective and working with them, incorporating them into your decision-making process. And this can lead to more creative solutions, more better outcomes for your product and for your customers. For me, I say this every time when I'm working with people, that the more diverse my ideas are, the more diverse the perspective I get on my table are, it helps me to refine it to one big goal. I call it gold every time, because I feel like I always use the illustration of how gold is refined to what we get to use today, from the ashy, the horrible looking, and you keep refining and they keep putting it through the fire and chiseling it and making it what we're wearing today. I always use this illustration when I talk about diverse perspective and ideation before we get to this amazing goal we want to work with. Making sure that you're incorporating the diverse ideas you get and perspective on working as a team, working on a product, whatever you're doing, even outside the walls of your career. The diverse perspective you get will help you actually get to where you want to go to better, because you keep iterating, you keep getting better, you keep increasing your knowledge bank, and then you can pick it at any time because you listen to somebody telling you something you really didn't know really didn't have the idea that it could actually work that way. And let's foster inclusivity. This means being mindful and of unconscious biases, being open to feedback and suggestions for improvement, creating a safe space and supportive environment where everyone feels comfortable sharing their ideas and perspective. Lastly, I always encourage everyone to, if you're in the space of building teams, please build a diverse team. Strive for diversity in terms of skills, experience, and backgrounds. This can lead you to more well-rounded, innovative teams, and of course, better equipped to work and tackle complex challenges. This is where I ask you to ask me anything you want to ask me now.
Hi, Ola. Thank you so much for a wonderful session. And I truly enjoyed it. And just before we even ask the product management questions, I would like to talk about, your Zen life and, the calmness, right? So as an introvert, I appreciate that. And it's not, I'm intentionally spotlighting it because in a noisy world, people like us feel that there's no space for us. You understand? And especially in the tech world where it's like buzzing, there's so much noise. You're like, how do I fit in? How can my ideas be heard? How can I be visible? But you're thriving, and I appreciate that. So I would like to ask one question. The first question I would like to ask is, could you talk about, your job at your place of work, one product you actually launched from start to finish, and then also, could you carry us, along with the process, the positives, the negatives, so we understand that it's not always a smooth ride. It's not always a smooth ride. You have to be proactive. You have to be emotionally intelligent. What if somebody on your team is, aggressive, right? And then also, we Africans are known to be, I don't know why they call us passive aggressiveness. There's this term called passive aggressiveness. And I think it's because we are energetic. Our voices, when we speak, it's kind of, our tone it's high as compared to, other races. And when they come in touch with us, they're like, oh, why is he shouting? And meanwhile, you're not shouting, you're just, passing across your information. So how do you navigate that in terms of releasing a product? So that will be the first question I'm going to ask. I have lots of questions here, and then we already have like 3 questions. I'm sure people will drop their questions along the line. But, let's start with that. Thank you.
Okay, I don't think you asked me one question. At the beginning, I thought it was one question, and then I realized it was more, so I had to take my notes. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
So you asked me, first of all, of my Zen life and how, as an introvert, I'm able to work and thrive. You asked me to share a product life cycle, the good parts and the bad parts, and how I navigated that. You asked about the passive aggressiveness of how they see us as the way we speak and how outspoken we are. I like to say outspoken as opposed to loud. So let me start with the Zen part and introvert working as a PM. In all honesty, because my job means I have to speak to people every time, I had to learn the skill. Doesn't mean that I was like this the whole time. I'm outspoken, but I actually, at some point, I'm tired. But nowadays, I probably on Friday, I spent all my hours speaking to people, and I didn't have any focus time at all. It can be draining for us, but I say that I learned the skill. I was speaking on Friday, and somebody asked me this question that, oh my God, how are you able to speak to people? How I also spoke about networking and how are you able to master the act of networking as an introvert? And I said to people that your comfort zone really doesn't pay you. And if you want something, you have to learn it. For me, I joined Toastmasters. As stressful as that can be, as nerve-wracking as that can be, I kept at it, and I I grew the muscle of doing this without the issue. But at the end of the day, and at the end of the day of working with my daughter, I would be by myself in my quiet so I can hear myself. So I find a way to revive the noise in my head and actually have peace and be calm. I'm always listening to music or something to actually bring my mind to my calm state. I would listen to podcasts or anything that actually interests me at that time. I have a roller, I would stretch, something to just put me in the space of rest after speaking and taking the extrovert part of me has taken all my energy. So I will say for anybody who is the homebody or just wants to be in their space, the truth is that our comfort zone does not pay us. So we have to learn how to actually get there. And I also told the person that asked me this question that so I use this illustration a lot, and I learned it from a friend of mine that every skill we learn is like a muscle in our body that we have not actually used. For example, there's some part of your legs that you honestly have not used, and if you go to the gym, it starts to hurt you. But as you go ahead and you keep going to the gym, that part stops to hurt you, and it becomes an everyday lifestyle for you because you have actually trained that muscle on your body. It's the same thing with our skills, our soft skills, communicating, working with diverse people, and showing up. Even though you're an introvert, you just keep doing it, even though it feels awkward. Honestly, speaking to people who have all their screen, all their cameras off and are listening to me is very awkward. Sometimes I'm wondering, are they listening? Are they connecting? Am I saying rubbish? Do I make sense? I mean, just think about you on my seat right now. It's actually something that would feel weird in so many ways, but keep doing it regardless. You actually then, at the end of doing it, you know that you're actually being valuable. And then, how would you know you failed if you don't try? That's the question I always ask people. If you don't try, how do you know you're good or how do you know you're bad? What's the value of just sitting in that comfort zone when you have not really tried? That's how I answered that question. It was pretty long, but I hope you got the message. I would talk about the product life cycle last, but I want to talk about the passive aggressive part of it. And I'm thinking about the best way to put it. We are people that there's a tendency for us to have culture shock when we move out of out of the space we are in, and we're used to actually just having our skin type around us. And then we see more diverse people in the room, and then it comes off to us that we feel that we might be loudspeakers, or the truth is that there are people who are not our skin color that speak as loud as I speak today. So you might as well just own it, because it means that you're more audible. Maybe it might mean you changing the words that you say and the way you say it, as opposed to would I call it how loud your tone is. Because I have a very clear example. My manager works at home with her husband, but in 2 different rooms. But if she does not have her noise cancellation on, with the fact that their offices are soundproof, you would hear that man for word to word everything he's saying. That is how loud he is. But the problem is not our voice. The problem is how are we putting the information out. Back home, we are disconnected with emotions in different ways, unfortunately, and the way we put out information to people does not really matter because we are disconnected with our emotions. But other people are not like us, and that's where the diversity comes in. So thinking about the best way to say what we want to say so that the next person does not feel attacked, the next person does not feel that we are violating the work rules, or we're imposing our ideas and not being open-minded. Like I said, I will be moving out. Every question you ask me, I will take it back to those 4 buckets. If you're more open-minded to different perspectives, if you're more open-minded to hearing ideas and being more inclusive with these ideas, I don't really think that people will call you passive-aggressive. because everybody wants to be heard. The same way you feel on your end that nobody is hearing you, everybody really wants to be heard. And this again is a skill we really also have to learn. This is not demeaning the fact that we could have any bias because of our color, but how about we start from here? So when anybody asks me this type of question, I always start from here. Let's start with what we can solve first before we think about the extras. Because if you solve these little things, and of course your skills are top notch, you would see that the noise of this color thing starts to reduce because you're actually doing the work. And that's what everybody wants when they're paying you a lot of money. Do the work regardless. And of course, soft skills over here is actually regarded as a big deal. So learning it is really good for everybody. That's how I'll answer that question. And I hope I did a good job to it. And now for the product.
Yes,
Thank you. For the product life cycle. I think I worked on a couple of different products that are as complex as they could be, from digital transformation, data architecture and the likes of those, to probably what we are used to is things that have a lot more front end. And like I said at the beginning, it just really goes from the ideation stage to everything that I outlined there, and I don't want to repeat it. But I think you wanted to get more about the good parts and the bad parts of that
yeah,
project.
please. Yeah.
The most alluring, the biggest bad parts we see today is aligning with everybody, which always has to do with clear communication. And in the past 4 months, I think that I've already had almost 10 times where a couple more meetings were called to make sure that everybody is aligned on the same thing and we understand what we're saying. Also, as of today, I'm currently working on a project that has people with diverse languages, from French to Spanish. Those are the ones I can remember now. And what that means is that there's already a language barrier. So the way you interpret from French to English might be a different way from where I'm coming from as someone who just speaks English. So having to come back to the space, ask those questions again, and make sure everybody is aligned is one of the things that I face today. The next one is timeline and prioritization. Everybody wants everything. Every stakeholder wants everything, and you want to make sure that every stakeholder who has a stake in your project is happy. So the question is, how do you balance this happy? And the best way I have done it so far is by giving reasons why X should be prioritized with data, how, of course, it would help build or help move this KPI, it will help move this metric, it will help us achieve this particular goal, which is everybody's goal. That is the biggest thing I have faced today. Unfortunately, I cannot give the extreme details of the work being done, but I can give the holistic view of prioritization, aligning based on communication, and also making those trade-offs while you're actually leaving your stakeholders happy, which is where I get to stakeholder management. The truth is that the stakeholders if you have 8 stakeholders on a project, you have 8 people with 8 different ways of thinking, 8 people with 8 different ways of making the decision, 8 people with 8 different ways of making their priorities. So what this keeps you is, how do I make these 8 people agree on what I want to do? It doesn't really have to be about you or what, it has to be about the data. So make sure as you're working on projects or work you have to do, and you have this kind of people working with you, you are able to defend what you're building and working on with data, facts that they can see, and that will help you have a better, seamless project work. What has gone well so far? Teamwork, honestly. I think that that's the best part of working as a team. Not relying on yourself for all the information, but people who have actually mastered a skill and expertise and coming together, watching everybody thrive and work or operate in their expertise really is the best part of working on my role. I see people there's a place where I have to be humble regardless, because I do not actually know this. I'm not as skilled as the next person. So I am constantly learning from the next person because I don't know everything. And in the space where I'm an expert, I thrive there. So I think that's the best part for me, actively learning, continuously learning, because I'm working with a ton of experts in their field and we're working together on a particular goal. Did I answer appropriately? Any follow-up questions?
Yeah, no follow-up question. Although I would have loved that you highlighted like a particular product, right? So we can relate to it in real life.
So
but maybe privacy. I understand that,
I can actually give more information about products I work on. So I work in a space where we're evolving e-commerce from having one tool that is building everything to connecting different tools that have expertise in working on different spaces, from inventory management to payment system, which is the fintech part, to order management system, to emails, marketing, and the likes, content management. And the goal is that at this point, I'm working with a ton of people that have different expertise, and we're coming together to ideate on first of all, the best tool to solve the problem, the best API, and the best way to connect with these different tools to solve our client's problem, and how we can make our clients happy, first of all, financially on their budgets, and lastly, making sure that the tools are actually solving their problem. So in this space, I also work with the constraint of time. Because it's e-commerce, my current project has to be done at least 60 days before Black Friday and has to be working appropriately so that nothing breaks. Black Friday is successful and everybody is happy. That's an overview of what I do today. Now, if you think about that space, it's much pressure. I work in a space where money transacts every day, and the platform has to work well so that people can buy and my clients are happy. So in that space, I'm just painting the space of the stakeholder here, the kind of stakeholders I work with, the pressure that they give us, the aligning as a team, and the expertise of people I'm working with, and also making you see how I have to reprioritize and bring data as a reason why we want to work on X as opposed to Y first, and how we are going to work on.
Is it possible the product does not go live before Black Friday? What if it does not go live before Black Friday?
Oh, it has to go live before.
Like, if somebody be sanctioned, would roll?
This is where prioritization and trade-off has to happen, because I own the product. I am responsible for it being live before Black Friday. So my head will roll if it doesn't get live before Black Friday. So how do I solve that problem? Is that making sure that my stakeholders are aligned on what I want to work on first, build first, and make sure it's running, and why the other things that they are asking for are not must-have for Black Friday. So for me, is the pressure of actively making sure we're working on only the right things for this release, and every other thing can be reprioritized as an extra for the version 2. So the head rolling is my head, and my head has to think about how I will prioritize better, how I will make those trade-offs better, and how I'll make those 8 people that I use as an example with 8 ways of thinking understand that this one goal is the best goal to work on, so that we are happy before Black Friday. And we see we have a whole lot of time for test run before Black Friday.
Someone said that's where the project manager comes in. I think that means you'll be working with a project manager, right?
Yes. So I do have a project manager on my team, and my project manager keeps us on time. And I would liken my project manager to the Scrum Master, but my project manager cannot help me prioritize what we need to get done. My project manager cannot help me prioritize what is business value for version 1. They don't know what is business value. They know that we need to get ready on this time. My project manager will give me reports on if we go at this rate of velocity in this case is how the technical team is working, we will not deliver on the set time. And I'm taking that information and saying, okay, great, thank you. How do I make us deliver at the set time with this velocity? Or how do I encourage the team work at a higher velocity to get us there at the set time? I hope this answers the question of project management and product management. That's how I just answered it now to that person.
In beginning, it means that you have to manage your team. It
Yes.
means that you have to beg them to work extra time. You have to take them for lunch, right? Just to manage them, because you just want the product delivered by all means.
Yes. So I guess how I'll rephrase that question of managing them and pushing them to work at extra time, I would say that you are leading by, what's the word? You're not leading by demanding those times for those people, but you're leading by persuasion. So it's a different ball game. Like if the CEO comes and says, oh, everybody has to work late, everybody will sit down and work late, but I can't do that. I just have to make sure they see data, of course. This is where open, transparent communication comes in. They see that we're at crunch of time. If we don't do this, we can't get here, and all of us are in trouble. If I tell you this and I tell you the goal we need to set, I am just telling you, I'm persuading you, but I can't tell you to work late hours. If you see me working late hours, of course you would show up and work late hours because, oh, we do have this pain point and we need to solve it as a team. This is where building relationship comes in. If I don't have the right relationship with my team, there is no way my team is going to show up late nights, because if the product doesn't go live, nobody's going to blame them. It's going to be me. So it's my honor to have that good relationship with them. I'm communicating properly. I am being open and transparent. I'm building the right relationship. I'm setting goals and making sure the goals are actually the best goals for us, and making sure they see the vision of the work that I'm doing.
That's correct. I'm sure everyone is listening, because right now it goes beyond the hard skills. It goes beyond learning how to use Jira, becoming a data analytics. It's beyond, in fact, excelling at your place of work is beyond understanding how to use all of these tools, but ensuring that you are on board with your team, you understand them, everybody is working together, and at the end of the day, the goal is achieved. So Ola's been speaking for the past 1 hour, 15 minutes. That's a lot of time. And of course, she's a mom, so I'm sure her baby is expecting her somewhere. So Ola, please, I would like to plead with you to grant us like extra 15 minutes to answer some of these questions. We have lots of them. So the first question is, how did you land your first role? I noticed a lot of companies tend to ask for years of experience, and then I'll merge two questions together, right, so we could just go faster. And then the second question was, what would you advise to someone learning about PM, someone new entering the tech world? To be specific, what advice would you give to the person? Okay, then we have Fumi, the third question, saying, I am Fumi, a sit-at-home mom of a set of triplets. That's a lot of work already. I live in Lagos. My experience goes across marketing and e-banking operations. So I'm sure that, that's in a financial institution. Currently, I took a 4-year gap period from work to build my family. Very valid. I'm currently taking a product management course with Use and Tech to prepare me to transition. Oh, okay, she's introducing herself. Okay, so most of the questions here is, what would you advise at entry level? How would you get your first question? How would you get your first job? And what kind of product portfolio can one build, even if you have never had an experience building a product before? So just before Ola comes into place, so I would like to talk a little bit about Use and Tech and what we do. So we are a totally hands-on training company. So it means that just as we're doing this webinar, someone just reached out to say, do you guys do certification? No, at the moment, we don't do certification. We totally work hands-on, because for quality education, you need to be able to do the job. And that is where we come into place. We have lots of people who have the certifications of product management, PMP, business analyst, but they can't do the job. So our training involves preparing you to do the job. And it's always intensive, fast-paced to some extent. But by the time you graduate, you have at least a portfolio, right? So what happens is you graduate the portfolio and you can leverage on that, to get into the job market. But aside from that, so that like we always say, there are several ways to acquire a skill. You can either go back to school or go to YouTube to learn all of these skills, or attend a boot camp. So whichever rocks your boat. The most important thing is you are learning. But from your perspective, Ola, I would like you to share your experience, what you think about, getting the first job, how to build your portfolio, and then, of course, excelling.
I think my first question here for whoever asked about this first job, what first job? Does this mean my first job fresh out of school, or my first job? I'm not so sure. That will help me.
I'm sure she meant first PM job, first product management job. So if, for instance, a lawyer is upskilling and they wants to learn the first product management course. Okay,
great. Thank you. So for me, first of all, I've been tech all my life, and I was more back end. When I mean back end, I was more back end building APIs, and I actively pushed myself this way into the business. I wanted to be in between the business and tech as opposed to really back end. Because for me, one of the things that, like I said, I'm an introvert, but I wanted to build the muscle of speaking to people. I wanted to learn more about the business and actually be less just on the back end, because I felt that being back end was increasing my introvertedness, because I would definitely not be speaking to anybody at all. So how did I get my first job? I first of all worked on my transferable skills. The fact that I was already in the tech space helped, but the biggest thing I see today for anybody on any role they are moving from into tech is what do you have on the table that is your transferable skills. If you're intending to move straight into product management, what's the transferable skill from wherever you are to that space, and how can you work on that? Second point again would be, if, for example, like you said, you're a lawyer, do you think that you can actually be a lawyer in the tech space? So it's the question of, do you want to pivot completely, or you want to navigate through what you have and keep going until you get there? Like I said, I was back end and I kept navigating my way, pushing my way on different spaces, different opportunities I saw, using my transferable skills and earning where I am today. So it's a question of, what do you want to do? It's my first question I will ask the person who wants this first job. Do you want to throw your degree and everything you have in the box and start afresh? Or do you want to navigate your way, building skills as you go and evolving to where you want to go to? I chose the second one. I mean, I'm already in tech, but there's a difference between just being a back-end person or where you are. I did do courses. Hills and Tech is a great place to get boot camps if you want that. But think about what you want to do first. Create your roadmap, how you want to get there. Do you want to start afresh, or you want to navigate your way slowly and get there? Because I have interviewed with a company that is a law tech firm. So if you're a lawyer and you have tech experience, you'll be of more value there as a PM than me, because you have more tech understanding and law understanding.
True.
If you think about it that way, of how do I want to get to where I'm going to, it really just depends on the person. Throwing everything away, or on navigating your way till you get there. So now, if you're a lawyer and you have tech experience or tech skills that you have gathered, and you go to that firm and you interview with them and they take you, in all honesty, the next interview you're doing, you will not be doing that interview as a lawyer trying to get into PM space. You'll be going into your next interview on your next level as a probably even a technical product manager or a technical project manager, but with law experience, because you navigated your way with your law experience into the tech space as a PM, and then you became a PM. Whenever you were just with a lawyer experience. That's how I'll put it, and that's how I'll answer. It really just depends on you and how you're building your roadmap to get to where you want to be. Your next question is advice for people coming into tech. I think it's similar to what I just said, but I'll re-summarize it. What do you want to do? If you ever come to me and ask me that you're transitioning into tech, I'll ask you what have you researched? What stood out to you, and what are your strengths? These 3 things will help you move yourself from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3 and the likes of those, because you at least know what you like, you at least know your strengths, and you at least know what stood out for you in everything you research. And then you can call, of course, what do I need to learn? What are the skills I need for this job? And how do I get? If you find yourself in places where you have internship.
Get up.
Excuse me.
Lady did it very well.
Okay, I apologize. So if you find yourself in spaces where you have internship, please go for it, learn it, take it, and it will help you move from that step as long as you've created that roadmap for yourself. And then kudos to that mom of 3 who was taking a break and is trying to get back in. Good job.
Thank you. All right, so thank you for that. So I think the question was from a university undergraduate who started a PM course in the month of March. So that's great. That's being proactive of you. I'll just say that as a university undergraduate, would you be looking into getting a job immediately, or maybe internship, or offer your skills? You could just look at an industry you like and would like to, offer your skills, maybe for free. That's if you don't mind, interning. Or if you are an undergraduate, because we have several types of undergraduates, some just want to make the money, and there's nothing wrong with that. You could just look at, industries where they are, hiring PM, product management, like entry level. You could just go online. There are several remote roles online that you could apply to rather. So that's a possibility. So Olada, I think, she's an undergraduate.
Okay.
So somebody said,
question I'd like to answer, sorry.
Yeah, and okay, let me round this up with, someone said, how do you use data insights to drive product execution in a cross-functional team?
How do you use data to drive product execution? I want to believe this person is just rephrasing what the person is saying. And if you're the person, you can just give me a thumbs up. How do you use product data to prioritize what you're building and executing that? That would be what I'm hearing. So let me give you an instance. If you are trying to build a product for a group of people who like to buy maybe children's clothes, but they want to be able to be as fast as possible in purchasing those clothes. So, and they don't have the time to return things after they purchase them. So they want to have the best description possible to get them to where they want to be in purchasing clothes. For first instance, I'll be gathering data from this type of people themselves. First of all, as a business, I want to know that my goal is to solve problems for moms who want to buy clothes for their children, the right sizes of clothes for their children. And then I'll go a step ahead to speak to moms like this that want to purchase clothes and understand all the pain points they have. Gathering all that information, first of all, that would just be qualitative data. And I would go back into quantitative data if available. And quantitative data, if it's a new product, it probably is not quantitative data on the product itself. But if it's a fresh out of the box product, there might be quantitative data on the web, and you can check that out. gathering all of this and creating that trend, creating that, using that data to find the best sweet spot for your product will be the best quick overview of how I would explain gathering data for product execution. So bringing your qualitative and quantitative data, as well as your business goal, merging them together and making sure you're working on the right product to serve the customer and as well as serve your business. Okay, I hope I answered that question, but I would answer Joy's question. She asked, what type of different testing is a product manager expected to ensure is done before go live? After every feature is built or every tick done, we have a QA who is working to make sure that the work that was done is actually the right thing that is supposed to be done. It behaves the right way. It does what it's supposed to do. The design is done right. So the QA goes from visual QA to technical QA. Now the visual QA works on making sure the design is right, the fonts are right, the size is right, the buttons are okay, the way it's supposed to be. And the technical QA means make sure the functionality end to end does work properly. Now this goes on all through your building of your product. And at the end, there's also the unit testing that happens before your product goes live. Some people call it unit testing and that's where it ends. Some people also have the beta stage, depending on how large their product is, so that a minimum amount of people can use it and they're not part of the company, but they are the masses and they can get feedback to make sure everything is working the right way. I hope that answers your question, Joy. And I'll scroll through to see if I have another question on. All right, I think I have answered how to use data. I did answer that one. Okay, I think I've answered all the questions here, but I'm scrolling down to make sure I have gotten to the end. Okay, thanks, Joy.
Yeah, we have just one. She said she's a baker and she wants to become a PM.
Are we going to be, I guess this is a Heels and Tech question.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Definitely. Yeah.
And thank you also for having me.
Yeah, I think we've answered all the questions. Thank you so much, Ola, for honoring our invitation. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's almost 2 hours here. Thank you for the questions. And please say thank you to Ola in the chat.